The sun hadn't fully risen yet, but the cold was already biting. The frost clung to the grass like a thin layer of sugar, and the air carried a sharp chill that made people pull their coats tighter around themselves. Ellie, an 11-year-old girl with bright blue eyes and curly brown hair tucked under her woolen hat, stepped carefully along the sidewalk. Her boots crunched softly against the icy patches as she walked toward school. She didn't mind the cold too much because her grandmother had knitted her a thick red scarf that kept her neck warm and cozy. It was one of her favorite things in the world, soft, bright, and full of memories. Ellie lived in a small town where everyone knew each other. The streets were lined with old brick buildings, some painted cheerful colors, others faded from years of weathering. There weren't many cars out this early, just a few trucks rumbling past, their exhaust fumes curling into the frosty air. Most mornings, Ellie enjoyed walking alone. It gave her time to think about school projects or daydream about faraway places she'd never been to. But today, something caught her attention. As she passed by the narrow alley between the bakery and the hardware store, she saw movement out of the corner of her eye. At first, she thought it might be a stray cat looking for scraps, but when she turned her head, she froze. A woman sat huddled against the wall, wrapped in what looked like a dirty blanket. Her face was pale, her lips slightly blue, and her hands trembled as they clutched at the edges of the makeshift covering. Her hair was messy, sticking out in all directions, and her clothes were thin and torn. Ellie stopped walking. She stared at the woman for a moment, unsure of what to do. No one else seemed to notice her. The street was quiet except for the occasional car driving by. Ellie felt a strange tug in her chest, like a tiny voice whispering, "You should help, her." She glanced down at her own scarf, its deep red color standing out against the grayness of the morning. It wasn't fair, she thought, that she had so much warmth while this woman seemed to have none. "Excuse me," Ellie said softly, stepping closer to the alley. Her voice was hesitant, almost shy. The woman lifted her head slowly, her tired eyes meeting Ellie's. For a second, neither of them spoke. Then Ellie took another step forward, holding out her scarf. I don't need this right now," Ellie said, her words tumbling out quickly. "You can have it, please take it." The woman blinked, surprised. She opened her mouth to say something but closed it again, shaking her head slightly. "No," she murmured, her voice hoarse. "I can't." "It's okay," Ellie interrupted, smiling despite the nervous flutter in her stomach. "Really, my grandma made it for me, and she always said we should share nice things with people who need them more." She held the scarf closer to the woman, unwavering. "Please, you look cold." For a long moment, the woman simply stared at Ellie. There was something in her expression, gratitude maybe, or sadness, but Ellie couldn't quite tell. Finally, the woman reached out with trembling fingers and accepted the scarf. She wrapped it around her neck, pulling it tight, and let out a shaky breath. "Thank you," the woman whispered, her voice barely audible. "You're very kind." Ellie nodded, feeling both proud and a little shy. "You're welcome," she replied. "I hope you feel better soon." With that, she turned and continued on her way to school, leaving the woman behind in the alley. As she walked, Ellie couldn't stop thinking about the woman. Who was she? Why was she living on the streets? These questions swirled in her mind, but she pushed them aside for now. School was starting soon, and she needed to focus. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that she'd done something important, even if it seemed small. Later that evening, after dinner, Ellie told her parents about what happened. Her mom, Lisa, listened quietly, sipping her tea at the kitchen table. Her dad, Mark, leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms over his chest. "You gave away your scarf?" Lisa asked, raising an eyebrow. "That was sweet of you, honey, but aren't you going to miss it?" Ellie shrugged. "It's okay. I'll be fine without it. Besides, she needed it more than I did." Mark smiled faintly, his gaze thoughtful. "You know, sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can make the biggest difference. I'm proud of you, kiddo." Ellie grinned, feeling a warm glow inside her chest. She didn't realize how true those words would turn out to be. The next morning, everything changed. Just after breakfast, there was a knock at the door. Lisa answered it, surprised to see two police officers standing on the porch. One of them was tall and broad-shouldered, with short dark hair and a serious expression. The other was shorter, with glasses and a notebook in hand. "Good morning," the taller officer said politely. "Are you Lisa Miller?" "Yes." "Lisa," replied, her brow furrowing. "Is everything all right?" "We're looking for someone who may have interacted with a homeless individual yesterday," the officer explained. "We were told a young girl gave her a red scarf. Does that sound familiar?" Lisa hesitated, then nodded. "That would be my daughter Ellie. She came home and told us about it last night. Why are you asking?" The officers exchanged a glance before the shorter one spoke up. "We found the woman you described, or rather, we tried to. She disappeared shortly after receiving the scarf and—" He paused, flipping open his notebook. "There's something unusual about the situation. We're hoping to speak with Ellie directly." Lisa's heart skipped a beat. "Disappeared? What do you mean?" The taller officer sighed. "When we arrived to check on her, she was gone, no trace of her anywhere, but the scarf—" He trailed off, glancing at his partner. "Well, let's just say it left us with more questions than answers." Lisa called Ellie over, her voice tinged with worry. As Ellie approached, the officers introduced themselves and asked her to recount what had happened. Ellie did her best to explain, describing the woman and how she'd offered her the scarf. When she finished, the officers thanked her and promised to keep them updated. After they left, Lisa turned to Ellie, her face pale. "Do you think anything strange is going on here?" she asked quietly. Ellie shook her head. "I don't know, Mom. I just wanted to help her, that's all." But deep down, Ellie couldn't shake the feeling that something extraordinary was happening, and that her simple act of kindness might have set it in motion. The next morning, Ellie woke up feeling uneasy. The visit from the police officers lingered in her mind like a shadow she couldn't shake. She kept thinking about the woman in the alley, the one who had vanished without a trace. What did it mean? And why was her scarf so important? After breakfast, Ellie decided to go back to the alley where she'd met the woman. She wanted to see if there was any clue left behind, something that might explain what had happened. Her boots crunched against the icy ground as she walked through the quiet streets. The frost sparkled in the sunlight, but the air was still cold enough to make her cheeks burn. When she reached the alley, it looked almost exactly the same as it had the day before. Empty soda cans and crumpled newspapers were scattered across the ground. But then Ellie noticed something near the wall where the woman had been sitting. A flash of red caught her eye. She moved closer and saw the scarf lying neatly folded on the ground. Ellie crouched down and picked it up, her fingers brushing against the soft fabric. It felt warm, even though it had been outside all night. That wasn't possible, was it? Scarves didn't stay warm unless someone had been wearing them recently. But no one was here now. "Hello?" Ellie called out, her voice trembling slightly. "Is anyone here?" No one answered. The only sound was the distant hum of traffic and the occasional rustle of leaves blowing across the pavement. Ellie stood there for a moment, clutching the scarf tightly in her hands. Something about it felt different. Not scary, exactly, but strange. Like it was holding onto a secret she couldn't quite understand. She took a deep breath and tucked the scarf into her coat pocket. Maybe her parents would know what to do with it. For now, she needed to get to school. Later that evening, Ellie sat at the kitchen table with her parents. She placed the scarf in front of them, explaining how she'd found it in the alley. Lisa frowned, running her fingers over the fabric. "It doesn't look damaged," she said slowly. "But how is it still warm? It's been outside for hours." Mark leaned forward, examining the scarf closely. "This isn't normal," he muttered. "There's something off about it." He turned to Ellie. "Did you notice anything unusual when you gave it to the woman?" Ellie shook her head. "Not really. She just thanked me and put it on. Then I left." Mark rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "I think we should take this to someone who knows more about stuff like this. Maybe Dr. Harper. He works at the university. He's into weird science stuff." Lisa raised an eyebrow. "Weird science stuff?" You know what I mean, Mark replied. He studies things most people don't understand. If anyone can figure out what's going on with this scarf, it's him. Ellie nodded eagerly. Can we go tomorrow? Her parents exchanged a glance before agreeing. They didn't want to alarm Ellie, but they were just as curious and worried as she was. The next morning, the family drove to the university. Dr. Harper's office was tucked away in a quiet corner of the physics building. Books lined the shelves from floor to ceiling, and papers covered every available surface. The professor himself was a tall, thin man with glasses perched on the end of his nose and a kind smile that put Ellie at ease. What brings you here today? Dr. Harper asked, gesturing for them to sit down. Mark explained everything: the homeless woman, the scarf, the disappearance, and the strange warmth it still held. Dr. Harper listened intently, nodding occasionally. When Mark finished, the professor picked up the scarf and examined it closely. This is fascinating, he murmured. May I run some tests on it? Ellie hesitated. Will it hurt it? Dr. Harper chuckled. No, of course not. I just want to see if there's anything unusual about the material. Sometimes things aren't what they seem. After getting Ellie's permission, Dr. Harper took the scarf to another room filled with machines and gadgets. Ellie and her parents waited, anxiously watching through the glass window as he worked. After what felt like forever, he returned, looking both excited and puzzled. Well, he began, adjusting his glasses. This is unlike anything I've ever seen. The fibers in this scarf contain microscopic particles that shouldn't exist. Not on Earth, anyway. They're emitting a low-level energy signature, which explains why it feels warm. Lisa blinked. What does that mean? It means, Dr. Harper said slowly, that this scarf might not be from our world. At least not entirely. Ellie's eyes widened. You mean aliens? Dr. Harper smiled gently. It's possible. These particles resemble technology used in theoretical experiments involving interdimensional travel. Whoever made this scarf, or whoever gave it to you, might have connections to places beyond our understanding. Mark leaned back in his chair, stunned. So the woman who took the scarf, could she have been an alien? That's one possibility, Dr. Harper admitted. Or perhaps she was someone trying to return home using the scarf as a key. Either way, it seems your daughter played a role in something extraordinary. Ellie felt a strange mix of excitement and fear bubbling inside her. She hadn't expected any of this when she gave away her scarf. All she'd wanted to do was help someone in need. What happens now? Lisa asked nervously. Dr. Harper shrugged. That's hard to say. Whatever activated the scarf may already be underway. We'll just have to wait and see. As they left the university, Ellie clutched the scarf tightly in her hands. She couldn't shake the feeling that something big was coming, something she couldn't yet imagine. That night, Ellie had trouble sleeping. Her mind kept racing with thoughts of aliens, dimensions, and the mysterious woman. Just as she drifted off, she began to dream. In her dream, she stood in a vast field under a sky filled with swirling stars. A tree made of crystal towered above her, its branches glowing softly. Standing beneath it was the woman from the alley, but she looked different now. Her hair shimmered like silver and her eyes glowed with a gentle light. You helped me, the woman said, her voice echoing softly. You completed the circuit. Ellie frowned. What circuit? The woman smiled. The scarf was a beacon, a signal. By giving it to me, you allowed me to send a message. My people will come soon. Before Ellie could ask more questions, the dream shifted. She saw flashes of spacecraft descending from the sky, beams of light touching the ground, and people gathering around in awe. The vision faded, leaving her standing alone in the starry field. When Ellie woke up, her heart was pounding. She sat up in bed, gasping for air. Was it real? Had the woman really spoken to her? She glanced at the scarf lying on her bedside table, its red fabric catching the dim light from her lamp. For the first time, Ellie realized that her small act of kindness might have opened a door to something far greater than she could have imagined. The next morning, Ellie woke up feeling restless. The dream she'd had stayed with her, vivid and strange, like a puzzle she couldn't quite solve. She kept thinking about the woman with glowing eyes and the crystal tree that shimmered under a starry sky. Was it just a dream? Or was it something real? Ellie got dressed quickly and went downstairs for breakfast. Her parents were already at the kitchen table, talking quietly. When they saw her, they stopped and smiled. "Good morning," Lisa said, pouring a glass of orange juice for Ellie. "Did you sleep okay?" Ellie hesitated. She didn't want to tell them about the dream, not yet. But she also knew she couldn't keep it to herself forever. "I guess so," she replied, sitting down. "But I had this weird dream last night." Mark leaned forward, his eyebrows raised. "Weird how?" Ellie described the dream: the glowing tree, the silver-haired woman, and the spacecraft descending from the sky. When she finished, her parents exchanged a glance. "That does sound strange," Lisa said carefully. "Do you think it has anything to do with the scarf?" "I don't know," Ellie admitted. "But it felt important, like it was trying to tell me something." Mark nodded thoughtfully. "Maybe we should talk to Dr. Harper again. He might have some ideas about what's going on." Ellie agreed, but before they could make any plans, there was a knock at the door. Lisa stood up and opened it to find 2 police officers standing outside. It was the same ones who had visited the day before. "Good morning," the taller officer said. "We're sorry to bother you again, but we need to ask a few more questions." Lisa stepped aside, letting them in. They sat down at the kitchen table, their expressions serious. "We've been looking into the disappearance of the woman you mentioned," the shorter officer began. "And we found something unusual." "What kind of unusual?" Mark asked. The taller officer pulled out a small tablet and showed them a video clip. It was footage from a security camera near the alley where Ellie had met the woman, in Yao. The video, the woman could be seen sitting against the wall wrapped in the red scarf. But then something strange happened. A bright flash of light surrounded her, and in an instant she vanished. Ellie gasped. "That's her. That's the woman I gave the scarf to." The officers nodded. "We don't know what caused the light, or where she went," the shorter officer explained. "But we do know one thing. She left behind the scarf, and when we tested it, we found traces of energy we can't explain." Mark frowned. "Energy? What kind of energy?" "We're not sure," the taller officer admitted. "It's unlike anything we've ever seen. That's why we came back. To see if you've noticed anything else unusual about the scarf." Ellie glanced at the scarf lying on the counter. She hadn't told them about finding it in the alley or about the warmth it still held. Should she say something now? Before she could decide, her dad spoke up. "We took it to Dr. Harper at the university," Mark explained. "He ran some tests and said it might not be from Earth. Something about microscopic particles and interdimensional travel." The officers looked at each other, clearly surprised. "Interdimensional travel?" the shorter one repeated. "That sounds far-fetched." "It does," Mark agreed. "But it's the only explanation that makes sense right now," the taller officer sighed. "We'll pass this information along to our superiors. In the meantime, please let us know if anything else happens, anything at all." After the officers left, Ellie turned to her parents. "What do we do now?" Lisa shook her head. "I don't know, but we need to be careful. Whatever's going on, it's bigger than we thought." Later that afternoon, Ellie decided to visit Dr. Harper again. She wanted answers, real ones this time. Her parents agreed to take her, sensing that she needed closure. When they arrived at the university, Dr. Harper greeted them warmly and led them to his office. "So, what brings you back?" he asked, sitting down behind his desk. Ellie told him about the dream and the video the police had shown them. Dr. Harper listened intently, his expression growing more serious as she spoke. "This is remarkable," he said finally. "If what you're describing is true, then the scarf isn't just a piece of fabric, it's a key. A device designed to open a portal between dimensions." "A portal?" Ellie echoed, her voice trembling. "You mean like a doorway to another world?" "Exactly," Dr. Harper replied. "And based on your dream, it seems the woman you helped may have been stranded here, By giving her the scarf, you allowed her to activate the portal and return home. Ellie's mind raced. But why me? Why did she need my help? Dr. Harper smiled gently. Perhaps because of your kindness. Some technologies respond to emotions, or intentions. Your act of generosity may have triggered the scarf's mechanism. Ellie felt a mix of pride and confusion. She hadn't done anything special, just what anyone would have done. Or so she thought. There's one more thing, Dr. Harper added. If the scarf was used to send a signal, it's possible someone, or something, is coming to answer it. What do you mean? Lisa asked nervously. I mean, Dr. Harper said slowly, that opening a portal works both ways. If the woman sent a message to her people, they may come looking for her, and for whoever helped her. Ellie's heart skipped a beat. You think aliens are coming here? To Earth? It's possible, Dr. Harper admitted, but we won't know until it happens. That evening, as Ellie lay in bed, she stared at the ceiling, her mind spinning with thoughts of portals, aliens, and the mysterious woman. She reached over and picked up the scarf, holding it close. It still felt warm, almost comforting, like it was alive. Suddenly, she heard a soft humming noise coming from the scarf. Startled, she sat up and looked around the room. Everything seemed normal, the glow of her nightlight, the shadows cast by her dresser, but the humming grew louder. Without warning, the scarf began to glow faintly, its red fabric shimmering like liquid fire. Ellie froze, her heart pounding. She wanted to call for her parents, but the words stuck in her throat. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, the glowing stopped. The humming faded, leaving the room silent once again. Ellie clutched the scarf tightly, her hands trembling. Something was happening, something big, and she had a feeling it wasn't over yet. The next morning, Ellie woke up feeling uneasy. The glowing scarf and the strange humming noise from the night before lingered in her mind like a riddle she couldn't solve. She kept thinking about what Dr. Harper had said, that someone or something might be coming to answer the signal sent by the scarf. What did that even mean? And why did it feel like everything was connected to her? Ellie got dressed quietly and went downstairs for breakfast. Her parents were already in the kitchen talking in hushed voices. When they saw her, they stopped and smiled, but Ellie could tell something was bothering them. Good morning, Lisa said, handing Ellie a plate of toast. Did you sleep okay? Ellie hesitated. She wanted to tell them about the glowing scarf and the humming noise, but she wasn't sure how they'd react. Instead, she nodded and sat down at the table. I guess so. Mark looked at her closely. You seem distracted. Is something wrong? Ellie took a deep breath. Last night, the scarf started glowing, and there was this humming noise like it was alive or something. Her parents exchanged a worried glance. Glowing? Lisa repeated. Are you sure? Ellie nodded. It felt warm, just like before, but then it lit up. I don't know what it means, but I think something's going to happen. Mark rubbed his chin thoughtfully. We need to figure this out. Maybe we should call Dr. Harper again. Before they could decide, there was another knock at the door. Lisa opened it to find the same two police officers standing on the porch. Their faces were tense, and they didn't waste time with pleasantries. We need to talk, the taller officer said, stepping inside. Something unusual happened last night. Ellie's heart skipped a beat. Had they seen the scarf glowing too? She stayed quiet as the officers sat down at the kitchen table. What kind of unusual? Mark asked cautiously. The shorter officer pulled out a small tablet and showed them a video clip. It was footage from a security camera near their house. In the video, a faint red light could be seen glowing in Ellie's bedroom window. The officers rewound the clip and played it again, zooming in on the light. That's your house, the taller officer said. Do you know what caused that? Ellie felt her cheeks flush. She glanced at her parents, unsure of what to say. Finally, Mark spoke up. It's the scarf, he admitted. It's been acting strange. We've taken it to Dr. Harper at the university. He thinks it might be some kind of alien technology. The officers looked at each other clearly, surprised. Alien technology, the shorter one repeated. That sounds impossible. It does, Mark agreed. But it's the only explanation that makes sense right now. The taller officer sighed. We'll pass this information along to our superiors. But if anything else happens, anything at all, you need to let us know immediately. After the officers left, Ellie turned to her parents. What do we do now? Lisa shook her head. I don't know. But we need to be careful. Whatever's going on, it's bigger than we thought. Later that afternoon, Ellie decided to visit Dr. Harper again. She wanted answers, real ones this time. Her parents agreed to take her, sensing that she needed closure. When they arrived at the university, Dr. Harper greeted them warmly and led them to his office. So, what brings you back? He asked, sitting down behind his desk. Ellie told him about the glowing scarf and the police visit. Dr. Harper listened intently, his expression growing more serious as she spoke. This is remarkable, he said finally. If the scarf is glowing, it means the signal is still active. Whoever or whatever is responding to it may be closer than we thought. Ellie's stomach tightened. You think aliens are coming here? To Earth? It's possible, Dr. Harper admitted. But we won't know until it happens. That evening, as Ellie lay in bed, she stared at the ceiling, her mind spinning with thoughts of portals, aliens, and the mysterious woman. She reached over and picked up the scarf, holding it close. It still felt warm, almost comforting, like it was alive. Suddenly, she heard a soft humming noise coming from the scarf. Startled, she sat up and looked around the room. Everything seemed normal, the glow of her nightlight, the shadows cast by her dresser, but the humming grew louder. Without warning, the scarf began to glow faintly, its red fabric shimmering, like liquid fire. Ellie froze, her heart pounding. She wanted to call for her parents, but the words stuck in her throat. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, the glowing stopped. The humming faded, leaving the room silent once again. Ellie clutched the scarf tightly, her hands trembling. Something was happening, something big, and she had a feeling it wasn't over yet. The next day, the town buzzed with excitement and fear. Strange lights had appeared in the sky overnight, bright streaks of color that danced across the horizon, like ribbons. People gathered outside, pointing and whispering, unsure of what to make of it. Some thought it was a meteor shower, while others believed it was something far stranger. Ellie stood in her backyard with her parents, staring up at the sky. The lights were mesmerizing, swirling and shifting in patterns that seemed almost deliberate. They weren't random, they were communicating. Do you think it's them? Ellie asked softly, clutching the scarf in her hands. I don't know, Mark replied, his voice tinged with awe, but it's definitely not natural. As they watched, one of the lights broke away from the others and descended toward the ground. It moved slowly, gracefully, like a bird gliding through the air. Ellie's heart raced as it approached, landing softly in the field behind their house. The light dimmed, revealing a figure standing in its place. It was tall and slender, with shimmering skin that reflected the colors of the sky. Its eyes glowed softly, and its presence radiated calmness. Ellie recognized it immediately. It was the woman from the alley. She stepped forward, her voice echoing, gently. Thank you, she said. You helped me return home. Now I've come to repay your kindness. Ellie's breath caught in her throat. What do you mean? The woman smiled. Your world has much to learn, and much to gain. My people wish to share our knowledge with you to help you grow and heal. With that, she extended her hand, offering a small, glowing orb. Take this. It contains the answers you seek, and the hope your world needs. Ellie hesitated, then reached out and accepted the orb. As soon as her fingers touched it, a warm sensation spread through her body, filling her with a sense of peace and purpose. When she looked up again, the woman was gone, and the lights in the sky had vanished. But Ellie knew one thing for certain. Her small act of kindness had changed everything. The next morning, Ellie woke up feeling different. It wasn't just the memory of the glowing orb or the strange woman from the night before. It was something deeper, like a shift inside her. She held the orb in her hands, examining it closely. It was small, No bigger than a marble, but it pulsed faintly with light as if it were alive. The colors within it shifted gently, blues, greens, and golds swirling together like a tiny galaxy. Ellie's parents were already awake when she came, downstairs. They sat at the kitchen table, whispering quietly. When they saw her, they stopped and turned their attention to her. "Did you sleep okay?" Lisa asked, her voice soft. Ellie nodded. "I think so. But I keep thinking about her and this." She held up the orb for them to see. Mark leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "What is it?" "I don't know," Ellie admitted. "But she said it has answers. And hope." Lisa sighed, looking worried. "This is all so strange. What are we supposed to do with it?" Before anyone could answer, there was another knock at the door. This time, it wasn't the police. When Lisa opened the door, Dr. Harper stood on the porch, looking both excited and anxious. "I heard about last night," he said, stepping inside. "Can I see the orb?" Ellie hesitated for a moment, then handed it over. Dr. Harper examined it carefully, turning it over in his hands. His eyes widened as he noticed the shifting colors and the faint glow. "This is incredible," he murmured. "It's some kind of energy source, or maybe more than that. It could be a form of communication." "A form of communication?" Mark repeated. "You mean like a message?" Dr. Harper nodded. "Possibly. Or maybe it's a key to understanding their technology. Either way, it's unlike anything we've ever seen." Ellie felt a mix of excitement and fear bubbling inside her. "What happens now?" Dr. Harper smiled gently. "Now, we study it. But we need to be careful. If this is truly alien technology, it could change everything, for better or worse." Later, that day, Ellie and her parents returned to the university with Dr. Harper. He led them to a secure lab where the orb could be analyzed safely. The room was filled with machines and gadgets, their lights blinking softly in the dim space. Ellie watched nervously as Dr. Harper placed the orb on a small platform and began running tests. For hours they waited while the machines hummed and whirred. Finally, Dr. Harper turned to them, his expression serious. "The orb contains vast amounts of information," he explained. "It's like a library, but not one we can read easily. We'll need time to decode it." "What kind of information?" Lisa asked, her voice trembling slightly. "It's hard to say for sure," Dr. Harper admitted. "But based on what we've seen so far, it seems to include knowledge about clean energy, medicine, and even ways to heal the planet." Ellie's eyes widened. "Heal the planet? Like stop pollution and fix climate change?" Dr. Harper nodded. "Exactly. If we can understand and use this knowledge responsibly, it could transform our world." Mark crossed his arms, frowning. "But who decides how to use it? Governments? Corporations?" "That's the challenge," Dr. Harper replied. "Knowledge this powerful could be used for good or for harm. We need to approach it carefully." Ellie clutched her hands tightly. She hadn't expected any of this when she gave away her scarf. All she'd wanted to do was help someone in need. Now she felt responsible not just for herself, but for everyone. That evening, as they drove home, Ellie stared out the car window, lost in thought. The streets were quiet, and the sky was painted with streaks of orange and pink from the setting sun. She couldn't stop thinking about the orb and what it meant. Could it really change the world? And if so, how? When they got home, Ellie went straight to her room. She sat on her bed, holding the orb in her hands. It felt warm, almost comforting, like it understood her worries. Suddenly, the orb began to glow brighter, its colors swirling faster. Startled, Ellie set it down on her bedside table and watched as it projected a faint beam of light onto the wall. The light formed shapes, images of trees, rivers, and animals. Then, words appeared, written in a language Ellie didn't recognize. But somehow she understood them. The message was clear: use wisely, share freely. Ellie's heart raced. She called for her parents, and they came running into her room. When they saw the images on the wall, they gasped. "What does it mean?" Lisa asked, her voice trembling. Ellie took a deep breath. It means we have to share this with everyone, not just scientists or governments, but everyone. It's not just for us. Mark nodded slowly. She's right. This isn't ours to keep. It belongs to the whole world. The next day, the family decided to contact the local news station. They knew it was a risk. Revealing something so extraordinary could lead to chaos, but they also knew it was the right thing to do. A reporter came to their house and interviewed them, filming the orb and its glowing projections. By the end of the day, the story had spread across the country, and soon, the world. People were amazed and divided. Some saw the orb as a miracle, a chance to fix the planet and create a better future. Others were skeptical, calling it a hoax or a danger. Governments and organizations clamored for control, but Ellie and her family refused to hand it over. Instead, they worked with Dr. Harper and a team of trusted scientists to decode the orb's messages. Slowly, they began to unlock its secrets, ways to create clean energy, cure diseases, and restore damaged ecosystems. The knowledge was shared openly, available to anyone willing to use it for good. As the weeks passed, changes began to take root. Communities came together to plant trees, clean rivers, and build sustainable homes. People started treating each other with more kindness and respect, inspired by the idea that even small acts of generosity could make a difference. Ellie watched it all unfold with a sense of pride and responsibility. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges, disagreements, and setbacks. But she also knew that the world had been given a second chance, and that it was up to everyone to make the most of it. One evening, as she stood in her backyard watching the stars, Ellie felt a sense of peace. She didn't know what the future held, but she believed in the power of hope and in the magic of kindness. And somewhere far away, the silver-haired woman smiled, knowing that her message had been heard. Months had passed since the night the glowing orb arrived. The world had changed in ways no one could have imagined. Cities were cleaner, skies clearer, and rivers ran pure again. People worked together to heal the planet, inspired by the knowledge shared through the orb. It wasn't perfect. There were still arguments and disagreements, but for the first time in a long while, humanity felt united. Ellie was sitting on the porch of her house one evening, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Her parents sat beside her, quiet but content. They didn't speak much these days about the orb or the strange events that had brought it into their lives. Instead, they focused on the present, the good things happening around them. "Do you think she'll come back?" Ellie asked suddenly, breaking the silence. Lisa glanced at her. "The woman from the alley?" Ellie nodded. "Yeah. Do you think she'll visit again?" Mark smiled faintly. "Maybe. But even if she doesn't, we know what she wanted us to do. She trusted you, with all of us, to use the gift wisely." Ellie looked down at her hands, remembering the scarf and how it had started everything. "I just gave her something warm to wear. I didn't think it would lead to this." Lisa reached over and squeezed her shoulder. "Sometimes the smallest actions can have the biggest impact. That's what makes kindness so powerful." Ellie smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. She didn't need answers anymore. She understood now that the scarf, the orb, and the silver-haired woman weren't just gifts. They were reminders. Reminders that even in a world full of problems, there was always room for hope. Later that night, as Ellie lay in bed, she stared at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had happened. The orb was safely stored in Dr. Harper's lab now, its secrets slowly being unlocked by scientists working together across the globe. But its message lingered in Ellie's mind. Use wisely, share freely. She closed her eyes, letting herself drift off to sleep. In her dream, she found herself standing in the same starry field from before. The crystal tree towered above her, its branches glowing softly. Beneath it stood the silver-haired woman, her hair shimmering like moonlight and her eyes filled with gratitude. "You've done well," the woman said, her voice echoing gently. Your world is healing because of you. Ellie shook her head. Not just me. Everyone helped. I just gave away a scarf. The woman smiled. That scarf was more than fabric. It was a symbol, a spark of compassion in a world that needed it. You reminded people of what they're capable of. Ellie felt tears prick her eyes. But what happens next? Will things stay better? The woman nodded. It's up to all of you now. The orb was a gift, but the real power lies within humanity itself. You've shown them the way. Before Ellie could ask more questions, the dream shifted. She saw flashes of the future, cities powered by clean energy, forests growing strong and green, and children laughing under bright blue skies. The vision faded, leaving her standing alone beneath the stars. When Ellie woke up, she felt calm and hopeful. She knew the dream wasn't just a dream, it was a promise that the world could keep getting better if people chose to care for each other and the planet. That morning, Ellie decided to visit the alley where she'd met the homeless woman. She hadn't been back since the day she found the scarf lying neatly folded on the ground. As she walked through the quiet streets, she noticed how different the town felt. There were fewer empty storefronts, more trees planted along the sidewalks, and smiles exchanged between strangers. When she reached the alley, it looked almost unrecognizable. Someone had cleaned it up, painting the walls with colorful murals and planting flowers in pots. A small bench sat near the entrance, inviting people to rest. Ellie smiled, realizing that even this forgotten corner of the town had been touched by change. She sat on the bench for a while, thinking about the journey she'd been on. From a simple act of kindness to a global movement, it all seemed impossible. And yet, here she was. She pulled her knees to her chest and gazed at the sky, feeling grateful. Later that afternoon, Ellie joined her parents in the backyard. They were planting new flowers in the garden, trying to make their little piece of the world a bit brighter. Ellie grabbed a trowel and knelt beside them, digging into the soft soil. What are we planting today? She asked, brushing dirt from her hands. Wildflowers, Lisa replied, handing her a packet of seeds. They'll attract bees and butterflies, good for the ecosystem. Ellie sprinkled the seeds carefully, imagining how beautiful the yard would look when the flowers bloomed. As she worked, she thought about the silver-haired woman and the message she'd left behind. Kindness wasn't just about scarves or orbs. It was about connection, about seeing someone who needed help and choosing to act. By the time they finished planting, the sun was beginning to set. Ellie stood up, brushing dirt off her jeans, and looked around at the garden. It wasn't much, but it was a start, a tiny contribution to a bigger picture. Dinner's ready, Lisa called from the kitchen door. Ellie followed her parents inside, feeling a sense of peace settle over her. She didn't know what the future held, but she believed in the power of hope and in the magic of kindness. As the family sat down to eat, laughter filling the room, Ellie glanced out the window at the fading light. Somewhere far away, the silver-haired woman smiled, knowing that her message had taken root and that the world was in good hands.